So I read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It is about the Clutter family who gets brutally murdered by Dick Hickok and Perry Smith. How the book unfolds is that it's broken up into four parts. Part one is the reader seeing seeing the family. It's Herb, Bonnie, um, Kenyon, and Nancy. And it's just kind of them living their lives. And honestly, it's almost kind of boring to watch. But as the book unfolds, because in the first part, you're just seeing them live their lives. But as the story unfolds, you realize that actually, it's not even foreshadow. It's just told that this is the last day they're seen alive, and it's honestly almost creepy just to read because you feel this fear that because you know something's coming, and it cuts between the family and Dick Hickok and Perry Smith, who are the killers, and you're seeing Dick Hickok and Perry Smith prepare to take the lives of this family, and they don't tell you why. Then part two starts with the investigation, or part one ends with them finding the bodies, and part two starts with the investigation of the murders, and you find out how the bodies were found, each one shot in the head, and the dad with his throat slit. And it's just kind of this unfolding of the investigation. You find out more about Perry Smith, who's one of the murderers, and Dick Hickok, and kind of their past. Then part three is when you realize how everything unfolded. Dick Hickok and Perry Smith are finally found by the police after months of investigating, and it's because they had this cellmate. They had gotten out of prison, and Dick Hickok and Perry Smith teamed up to go rob the Clutter family because they heard from the cellmate they had named Floyd that there would be a bunch of riches in this house because the dad, Herb, is this like super rich farmer. And then so they go to rob the house, they get picked up by the police, and they both end up confessing after a couple days of interrogations. And when they confess, it kind of switches perspectives, and it's really interesting to see how Capote writes it because he switches perspective from Alvin Dewey, who is the main investigator, and it switches to Perry Smith's perspective of the night of the murders, which is really interesting because he is the murderer, or one of them, and you realize that what happened was they went to go rob the house, they didn't find any money, but Dick Hickok wanted to keep searching, so they woke up the family, tied them all up, searched the whole house, and then and then there was nothing there, so Dick Hickok was like, okay, I'm gonna go rape the girl. That's Nancy, the 16-year-old. And Perry, the other murderer, is like, if you rape her, I will kill you. Because he has a past with that, and he isn't comfortable with his partner going and doing that because he knows the effects of rape, and he doesn't want that to happen to anybody else. And then his reaction to Dick saying that is like, you're not a real man by trying to rape. I'll show you what a real man does. And then he goes and slits the throat of the dad, kills the brother, and then goes up and Dick kills the two women, Bonnie and Nancy. So Perry ends up telling that whole thing to the police, and obviously there's the whole the whole trial, and they're found guilty. They're sentenced to death, and it's just kind of really interesting because in the end, Alvin Dewey, that's kind of how the book ends in his perspective. You kind of realize that there's no justice in what happens, and he doesn't feel any closure after they die, after they're killed, after they're sentenced to death. And kind of what I took out of it is that law, at least when I like put my thoughts together, what I realized is that law is it's an attempt at justice and a hope for order. And when things like this happen, when you get a brutal murder like this, you have to have an attempt at justice, but that doesn't mean there's going to be closure. There has to be a punishment for people who do this, but that doesn't mean that it's all sunshine and rainbows. There's no happy ending to something like this, no matter what punishment comes. So that's just what I took out of it. And when it comes to kind of what I learned about when it comes to law, is kind of the same thing. Like, the clutters are still gone. Law didn't stop this. I mean, law obviously helped, and that's why they were caught in the end, but it doesn't create closure. It doesn't change what happened. So yeah, that's what I got out of it.